Hello and welcome to Rubbin Minds. I'm Hero Daniels, your host. It's exactly a week since the presidential elections, and Nigeria is at a very fragile point. Bola Ahmed Tinubu has emerged as president-elect as declared by the INEC. While many celebrate this feat, others believe that it's a stolen mandate. The Jagaban himself will be the first Nigerian president to be elected with less than 50% of the total votes, and that is as a result of the third force, Peter Obi. Peter Obi and the Labour Party believe they won the elections, and he has vowed to reclaim his mandates through every legal and peaceful option. Neither Atiku or Obi has put the legendary call across to Tinubu to concede. Election results announcements are characterized by large jubilation across the nation, but the streets have been silent, and that silence has been very loud. Whatever side of the divide you belong to, one thing is common. We all want a safe, stable, and prosperous nation. How can we all come together to achieve that? On the other hand, do we trust the rule of law to deliver justice, if need be? However, we cannot move to the future without revisiting our past. What lessons have we learned? What are the takeaways from the 2023 presidential elections? To discuss this, joining us from Abuja, I have Fakiriya Hashim. She is a researcher. Hello, Fakiriya.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Also joining us in the studio in Lagos is Ibitayo Reju. He is a legal practitioner. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
Also joining us via Skype is Chidi Okereke, who is a digital strategist. Hello, Chidi. It's good to see you.
Hi, Hero.
All right, so I'm going to start with Ibitayo. Let's get straight into it. It's been a week, and so much is happening.
Absolutely.
How would you rate the performance of the Independent National Electoral Commission in this election?
Well, you see, first and foremost, as you said, I'm a legal practitioner, and I can only make conclusions based on facts available to me. There have been a couple of controversies that have arisen from the conduct of the election and the process. And like I said, look, I voted in a single polling unit, and there are over 176,000 other polling units where these elections were conducted. So it's impossible for anyone, as a matter of law, to roll out a scorecard, and provide an accurate measurement as to, INEC's performance. As far as I'm concerned, from a personal point of view, from where I voted, the process seemed to be seamless, free, and fair, and devoid of the usual election irregularities. But that is not to say that I have not been privy to a couple of information on social media where certain electorates were disenfranchised, either due to violence, misconduct, alleged misconduct, as the case may be, from some of the electoral officers. So in a nutshell, I think it's a mixed bag. And like I said, it's a question of evidence, in rolling out a scorecard for INEC, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you very much. Fakiriya, you are a researcher, you deal with numbers, and one of the major points that a lot of people have been bringing up in this election is the fact that the Independent National Electoral Commission did not upload the results as at when due, to the portal as the Electoral Act had demanded. What are the numbers looking like, rather? And did we have a free and fair election from a data point of view?
Hi, thank you for that question. So up until yesterday, we were still hearing that INEC had not completely uploaded most results from the IREV on the IREV. And, giving that, I think that was really poorly implemented, right? I mean, from the data side of things, I believe CDD noted that we've seen about 30% of INEC officials arriving at polling units not on time. We've seen over 30% of INEC officials arriving on time, and the rest being disrupted by electoral violence. I mean, fundamentally, INEC has performed underwhelmingly this time around, but it doesn't really contrast with previous elections that we've had. All of the issues that we've witnessed have been consistent with INEC's performance over the past few years. So, I think there's been a lot of expectation based on the budget allocation, the allocation of resources that was given to INEC, that they would perform a lot better this time, but that had not been the case. There's been a lot of irregularities, and we've witnessed a lot of disruptions. So yeah, I don't think INEC did perform as we had hoped.
Yeah. Okay. Chidi, social media was totally underestimated. The impact of social media on this election was underestimated prior to the elections. I mean, we even had the presidential candidate, Kwankwaso, who said that most of his voters are not on social media, and a lot of the political heavyweights really concentrated on the grassroots, quote and unquote, as they would refer, which they think means people that are not on social media. What was the impact on social media on this election?
Yeah, I like the fact that you referenced the fact that a lot of people underestimated the possible impact of social media, because at the beginning of the campaign, especially of the campaign by the Labour Party candidates, there were conversations around how social media did not have an impact, how it was 4 people tweeting from a room. From that, it grew to a movement that basically officially won more than 6 million votes, and well, at the end of the day, when the courts, investigate and everything, we'll find out that more votes were won. So yes, social media is a very, very valuable tool. Now, as internet connectivity deepens in Nigeria, it only makes sense that more people are definitely going to be connected. So when they say they are campaigning to grassroots, they're not campaigning to people on social media. Who do you think are the people who are at the grassroots level? My mother has WhatsApp. 10 years ago, that was not the case. That people in the village can connect to us in urban areas. So who do you think people are listening to? Where do you think they get their information from? So if anybody thinks social media is not important, I think this election is a testament to the fact that social media is a block on its own.
So there has been a lot of discrepancies. A lot of people took pictures and made videos of their polling units. In fact, there's a particular viral video of a polling unit counting LP votes, and it has since gone viral. LP 26, LP 75, or whatever the video was saying, right? Now, do you think that those pictures, videos, would be used as sort of evidence to challenge the results by INEC in the court? Do you think it's credible evidence?
So I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't exactly speak to the credibility of that in the court of law. But I think social media basically did what the INEC IREF was supposed to do, right? If we did not have all those evidence, if we did not have all those proof, this result would have stood. So I think while a lawyer is in a better position to say whether it's admissible in court or not, I think it should be admissible, because this is the people's mandate. This is actually what people took at the polling units, and this is what a lot of them used as their confirmation that this election was won by a particular party. So for it not to be admissible, it would be very, very weird, in my opinion.
Okay, just to throw something in, you made a statement that this result would have stood. I just also want to let you know that the result is standing until otherwise proven by the Supreme Court, which of course would handle the final matter. I'm going to throw the same question to you. You are the legal practitioner here. Do you think some of those pictures and videos on social media are authentic enough to stand as evidence?
Well, unfortunately, I can't make a comment as to whether or not the court will admit a document. You know, for a document to be admitted in court, it must satisfy the evidentiary requirements for its admissibility. However, case law is clear in satisfying or essentially in discharging the burden of proof as regards voting. It is the result sheet obtained from the polling unit that is admissible in evidence. However, like you rightly said, the result that was announced by INEC remains the result as of today. It will then take a petitioner to file a petition, of course within 21 days, and then adduce facts, you know, that will be surrounded by the three conditions or the three requirements for presenting a petition under Section 134 of the Electoral Act. The first is that the person who won that election was not qualified to contest the election at the time of the election. The second one is that the person who was returned as the winner did not score the majority of the lawful votes that were cast at the election. And the third requirement is the fact that there was non-compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act. So notwithstanding the document the petitioners intend to rely on, they must bring their petition under these provisions of the Electoral Act. And I would want to give an academic answer because, like I said earlier, the petitioner has 21 days to present his petition. And I would only advise that we'll wait and see the petition, or petitions as the case may be, presented by the petitioners. And then, of course, I'll wait the decision of the court on the issue.
All right. I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that, but let me speak to Fakiria. I think this has been the most dynamic election since 1999. For the first time, we've seen a candidate not winning up to 50%, you know. Bola Tinubu won 12 states, Atiku won 12 states, while Obi won 11 states and the FCT. And what that presents to us is that we now have a president that a lot of people did not vote for. What does that mean for Nigeria, and how do you think the president-elect should navigate through this?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we're witnessing a very interesting change in the dynamics of elections, right? Predominantly PDP states that have historically voted for PDP in the past few years have not voted PDP. We've seen them turn to LP states. APC, Buhari voting blocks have been split between the two major parties. So I think watching all of this unravel, like unroll, has been really, really interesting to see. And yeah, as you can see, like no one is out celebrating. I think that has been the talk of the streets, like for a few days now, on social media, and also, you know, when you go out, it's probably going to be the first elections where we're not seeing people out, you know, celebrating, people creating, you know, a sense of, victory and like tapping into their sense of like happiness and victory. And that, you know, I don't think that reflects really well on the, you know, on the process, right? Many people feel cheated, right? As you can see, there's been a few protests here and there in a few states. Here in FCT, we had a protest a couple of days ago. And, you know, like, whatever the court decides, if the president-elect is here to stay, then he needs to be able to navigate that so that it becomes a government that everyone can relate to. But if he isn't, then, you know, I believe we'll see a lot more celebrations that come through. But, you know, that's besides the point. The current, you know, the current president-elect should be able to create an environment where people feel a sense of inclusivity in government. Because as it stands, you know, a lot of people that do not vote feel that they are going to be alienated from government, from the process. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks, what evidence the opposition parties are able to collate and submit to INEC, submit to the courts, and whether or not that is going to make a difference. I think a lot of people are hopeful, but you know, it remains to be seen if anything will change. But you know, to the president-elect, I think there needs to be a sense that, you know, this is not a government for a specific group of people, and that there is room for everyone to be part of, you know, governance.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for Korea. You did mention that the streets have been silenced, because usually there's widespread celebration across the streets and also on social media. Chidi, there has been so much aftermath, you know, from the elections, and I think it has sort of overpoured into the forthcoming elections. We're currently seeing what looks like almost a tribal war and a lot of incitations here and there on social media. How much do you think this is affecting our democratic process, and how do you think we can combat fake news in some instances?
I mean, it's really, really sad that tribalism has, you know, become a thing. I mean, it's always been a thing, but it's like it's becoming worse. Maybe it's because of the prevalence of social media. More people are becoming like their parents. We're beginning to spread these things faster than it used to be spread before. But it's really, really sad that in 2023, people are still doing things and talking tribal sentiment. It's very, very unfortunate. I think people who know better should do better in trying not to proliferate this, try not to spread it as much as possible. I do not listen to dog whistle. I do not amplify it. I never ever pay attention to it. And I think if we do as much as we can to shut it down, it would go a very, very long way. Very, 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 very long way. The upcoming elections are still an opportunity for people to vote who they want to vote for. Don't listen to anybody telling you that you should not vote for somebody because the person is a different tribe or whatever. Vote your conscience and vote your choice. And when you vote your choice, stand by your choice. I'm not a fan of people being insulted or abused because they choose whoever it is you choose. As far as the process is free, fair, devoid of intimidation, nobody is disenfranchised. I'm fine with whatever the result is. So everybody should vote. Keep tribal and religious sentiment in your pocket, please. There's no time for that.
100%, I agree with you. Now, we've seen a lot of states, a lot of slots in the Senate and, of course, the National Assembly elections. LP, the Labour Party is taking a lot of seats, grabbing a lot of seats. In fact, of particular mention, what happened at Etiosa. The candidates of the Labour Party, Thaddeus Atta, who of course did his due diligence with the campaign, but obviously because of Banky W's popularity, a lot of people might not have sort of, you know, known him personally or his antecedents or what he stands for, but the fact that the P2B effect, they wanted to vote LP from top to bottom. Do you think that might play a critical role in the forthcoming election? And how important is it for people to single out the candidates as opposed to just voting for a party because of the presidential, the candidate that you're supporting is from their party?
So there are so many ways to look at this. There are so many lenses, and I don't even think I have enough time to dissect this thing. But the summary for me is this. To be honest, I voted Banky W because I know him. To be honest, again, I did not know the Labour Party candidates before the election day. But at my polling unit there was kind of like compared to the presidential and the presidential elections, the disparity between the LP and the other parties, there was kind of like almost a balance. LP still won in my polling unit, but there was kind of like a balance because more people knew Banky W. Now, voting top to bottom is a thing. If you go anywhere in the world, there are regions that vote a particular party. because that is how they are built. It is very, very important that a president has his people in the National Assembly. So if people are voted top to bottom because they have that in mind, that is very, very important. But I personally will always say that people should vote for people, not parties. I will personally always say that. I understand people who think otherwise, but I'll always advocate for voting people over party. For example, my choices in this election are spread, like they are spread across parties in this governorship election. I'm not going to advertise anybody, but my choice in Abia State is different from my choice in Oyo State. It's different from my choice in Rivers State. These are states I have affiliations with, and of course, Lagos State. So I encourage people to vote people they think can do and create an environment where everybody thrives. And if that is what your choice is based on, fantastic for you.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, we're almost running out of time. Now, quickly, very quickly, we are at a very critical stage, just like my opening monologue said. Bola Ahmed Tinubu was elected with 37%.
Absolutely.
None of the candidates have conceded.
Yes.
It's very, very important that irrespective of what our political views are, whatever happens in the next couple of months, it should be in the interest of Nigeria. How do we move forward from this very fragile state that we are in currently?
Well, I think, like Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his acceptance speech has come out to encourage Nigerians to embrace democracy. Mr. Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar have also communicated their intention to challenge the results of the elections. In addition to that, they've also encouraged their supporters to remain calm and peaceful. And so generally the advice is, let us await the decisions that will be taken by these political parties. They've said they will challenge the results. If the case gets to court, let Nigerians await the decision of the courts. I, for one, anticipate that the issues in this election would make it to the apex courts. And notwithstanding what happens at the Court of Appeal, I mean, for the presidential election, it will make it to the apex courts. And I believe because of some of the peculiarities of these elections, so for example, the BVAS technology, the IRF technology, these things are novel. And so I feel the Supreme Court will be presented with an opportunity to make a landmark decision, on some of the issues surrounding, and some of the controversies surrounding the elections. And so essentially, like all the candidates have said, they've encouraged their supporters to remain calm and just let the rule of law take its course.
Yes, speaking about the Supreme Court's having to make a decision, right?
Yes.
What exactly do you mean? Because basically we have another elections just forthcoming Saturday. We've seen that the beavers did not, so in some cases you hear cases like, oh, it's not charged or this or that. There's been a lot of discrepancies. So when you say make a decision, are you saying to make sure that they enforce using the beavers as the Electoral Act demands? So what exactly are you saying?
So the issues surrounding the use of beavers and, so there are two major issues that I think are controversial. The very first issue is the issue as to whether or not a candidate who does not score 25% of the votes in the FCT, whether or not INEC ought to have returned that candidate as the winner of the election. As we all know, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu won 11 states, and I think he got to third majority.
12, actually.
No, he won 12 states, sorry, yes, 12 states, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And he got to third majority in over 25 states. However, he didn't get a quarter of the votes in the FCT. I think Alhaji Abubakar Atiku as well did not get a quarter of the votes in the FCT. And so I know during the coalition and even after the announcements, I've read where supporters of the Labour Party had said, look, Section 134 of the Constitution, sub 1 and 2 says, before a candidate can be declared as the winner of an election, a presidential election, he must score a 25% in 2/3 of the states in the Federation and the FCT. Now, there have been different schools of thought. A school of thought have said, look, in interpreting that provision of the Constitution, a candidate must score 25% in 24 out of the 36 states. In addition, that candidate must also score 25% in the FCT. That's the first school of thought. And the reasoning of that school of thought is premised on, we have what we call canons of interpretation in law. When interpreting a statute, we have what we call canons. there's a literal rule, which essentially says, if the provisions of a statute are clear and devoid of ambiguity, interpret that statute using its ordinary literal meaning. And so that's the canon of interpretation that first school of thought adopts. The other school of thought, the school of thought that said, look, in interpreting the provision of a statute, you must consider the intention of the draftsman. What was the intention of the person who drafted, who made that law? And they have argued that the intention of the draftsman was to create a situation where whoever is returned as the winner in the presidential election, he must have a wide spread of votes across all the states in the Federal Capital Territory, in Nigeria. And because the Federal Capital Territory is not a state, there was no other way the Constitution could have described it. That school of thought, I've also said, look, in interpreting the provision of a statute, you can't do it in piecemeal. So whilst you're interpreting the provision of sections 134, you must do it concomitantly with the provision of sections 299.
Okay. Okay, so to summarize it in a layman's term, right?
Yes, so
the first school of thought says that you must win 25% in 2/3 of the 36 states.
And the FCT.
And the FCT. That means 25% of the FCT.
Yes.
However, the second school of thought is you have to consider the FCT as some type of state in itself. So it means 2/3 of the 37, allow me to use the word states.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much. We just have to wrap up this segment. Thank you for coming on the show. Big thank you to Fakaria from Abuja and, of course, Chidi joining us from Skype. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back. This is Rubbin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were having a very interesting conversation about the takeaways from the 2023 presidential elections. There's so much for us to learn from the 2023 presidential election, and we have the opportunity to correct some of the discrepancies and the inconsistencies witnessed in the last election with the forthcoming state elections. To discuss this with me, I have Mayo Waido, who is a journalist and a lawyer, joining me in the studio. Also, I have Sandra Esekwesili, who is a broadcast journalist par excellence, joining me via Skype. Hello, Sandra. Hello, Mayo.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Fantastic. So I'm going to quickly just throw the question to you straight away, Sandra. We have seen such a huge support for the third force, the Labour Party, and of course its candidate, Peter Obi. Young people have gravitated towards that particular individual and the party. And this is such a good thing for our democracy. But the question now is, how do you think young people can also infiltrate other parties such as, the APC and the PDP to make sure that we have a very balanced system?
I don't think young people need to infiltrate the APC and the PDP for a balanced system. I think that if they have found their home with Labour Party, then they should stay with Labour Party and find ways that they can replicate their victory on Saturday at granular levels. So for state, local governments, state assemblies, etc., etc. I think that what the older parties, the more established parties need to do is to woo the young people. There's a reason the young people rejected the candidates that, or some of them, because not all of them, you have young people who also voted for the candidates of the PDP and the candidates of the APC. So for the young people who rejected the other candidates and decided to go in a different direction, walk a new path, I think, in my opinion, personal opinion now, I think that the more established parties need to do a bit of wooing there. And if you pay attention to what Bola Ahmed Tinubu said during his acceptance speech, it does look like there will be some wooing happening, because he did say, quote, young people, we have heard you loud and clear. Right. What does that mean? What will that mean going forward? No one knows. But in my opinion, the young people have decided this is the party we want, this is the party that we can grow with, grow into, and that's fine. If the other establishment parties want to, align with the young people, then they should be doing some wooing here.
Fantastic. Mayowa, the emotions are really high on social media, and the reason why we keep talking about social media is that a lot of young people are on social media, and it has provided that space for people to interact and banter. However, how do you think we can control, and by control I don't mean suppression of anybody's speech, I mean how do we think you can control all of those emotions happening, especially in the past few days, particularly for Lagos. You've seen that there's been a lot of tribal sentiment coming up on here, up and down. And I personally think it's a scheme by the elites because we don't remember tribe until elections. So how do you think we can sort of maneuver and enlighten everybody to make them understand that we shouldn't be against each other?
Okay, so this is interesting. Earlier this week, I was looking at, I was trying to study like the deportation drives between Nigeria and Ghana. So I think there was a deportation drive in Ghana of Nigerian people in the 50s. And then in the early 80s, there was, you know, Ghana must go. And what I realized, like the common link was that these things only happen when there's economic strife. So it's because, you know, things aren't great, conditions aren't bad. That is when you can, you know, pull on this like mythological other person and say, you know, this person is X, Y, Z, don't vote for them. So I think there needs to be, first of all, a conversation amongst the political elites as to why people feel the things they feel. So it's a statement of failure. It's an idea that, you know, you guys have not performed as well as you have, and because you haven't, you have to, you know, stoke up these ethnic tensions and use it to manipulate people towards elections. I also think, you know, there needs to be responsibility. So, for instance, we're referencing, you know, what's been going on in Lagos State. I don't think there's any, I don't see any reason why, you know, someone from the APC, either a spokesperson or, for instance, the governor himself, would call people to order, basically saying, you know, this thing is going on, we don't like it, we shouldn't be doing this. You know, Lagos is, we're from Lagos, we accommodate people from, you know, different backgrounds, other places, and this is how we should do it. So I think there definitely needs to be some form of responsibility taken to kind of mediate that conversation.
Okay. Okay, and also from the legal point of view, what do you think the INEC needs to put in place? And what are the legal implications if they also fail, quote and unquote, in this forthcoming elections, if they don't, you know, put their house together?
I think INEC, you know, INEC is a regulator, so we're always very careful about what we say about regulators. I think INEC needs to, first of all, put in place better communication. I think one of the reasons why INEC has been able to lose credibility and trust is because people don't trust the things that they're saying or they're doing. I also think, you know, they need to be a bit more transparent in, you know, what they're doing and why they are doing certain things. For instance, in my case, on the day of the presidential elections, my polling unit, there was nobody there. And we were driving around looking, you know, people were telling us, check this place, check this place, check this place. They didn't show up until 11:30 or 12. But, and in that, I mean, I think there were 80 people registered there, only 37 people showed up, eventually voted. So, on one hand, someone will say, you know, there's depressed turnout, but many people do you know, like, basically went back home because they weren't able to vote? So I think INEC has to communicate better. So, you know, these things, it should be clear. You shouldn't have to, like, be walking on the road and asking people on the road, oh, do you know where this polling unit is? Yeah, I think that's what we need from INEC going forward.
Okay, Sandra, Peter Obi had a press conference and he said, and I quote, we won the elections and we're going to prove it. One of the concerns of a lot of people has been that the opponents haven't conceded in this election and they want to follow due process and go to court. What does that say about our nation in terms of president-elects moving forward? We have a very divided nation. What's the implication of this very huge division, and what can be done about it?
I think that if a person loses something and they think that somebody else stole that thing from them, they have every right to invite law enforcement to investigate whether or not a thing has been stolen from them. Now, law enforcement can investigate and they find that, Organa, wow, now false alarm you just raised, so everybody goes home, no farm, no harm. or perhaps the person who was accused of theft will say, you impugned my integrity, you impugned my character, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to ensure that you pay for this slander, you know? Or the law enforcement can say, and they stole Shao, but okay, how can we solve this in a way that makes you happy? And I think that in any civilized society, we should encourage people to look for accountability. We should encourage people to seek out justice if they feel like they've been wronged. And it's instructive to note that both Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi and their vices have said to their supporters, remain calm. However, Nigerian politicians and the political class and the elite whose bread and butter is often ensured by upholding criminality and injustice will use language such as, oh, they are heating up the polity, or they are trying to make people go out into the streets. We need to overcome the trauma that keeps us in a place where we do not agree as a society, that if a person feels like they've been wronged, it is up to them to seek redress. Seeking redress is not a sign that they are asking for violence, especially when they have gone out of their way to say everybody remain peaceful. In fact, they even said go and vote again on March 11th. In fact, the supporters of the political parties that feel like they were robbed are even saying we're going to go and vote again on March 11th to show our anger. The only people who keep talking about, oh, don't heat up the polity, oh, let's keep things calm, etc., are the ones who have won the victory, who have been announced the victors. If you've been announced the victors and someone is challenging your victory, you tell them go to court like they did. And if they're not going to court, why are you there coming to say, oh, why not just call and concede? Why not just, keep things calm? Especially when those opponents are already asking their supporters to remain calm throughout the entire process. So it's either one thing or it's the other. It can't be both.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it from a point that you just raised, that a lot of the people that have supported, the LP and of course PDP have said that they're going to take out their anger, quote unquote, on March 11th. So are you saying that there is such a thing as revenge votes, and how do you think that affects, the elections?
Some would say that LP's emergence is revenge votes in its entirety. Nigerians for the longest time, so I host a radio show on Nigerian FM called Hard Facts, and every single day from 3 to 7, people are calling me, talking to me about their dissatisfaction with the establishment, whether it's PDP or whether it's APC. People were calling all the time. We need something new. We need something fresh. So in a way, a lot of the support that LP currently enjoys, some could say is already revenge vote. More of that vengeance is what we're probably going to see on the 11th of March. That's, of course, if you have the chief security officers of the different states commit to ensuring that people are safe, people are able to actually come out and vote. Because there was a lot of violence in Lagos last Saturday, and Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has still not come out to say, oh, this was wrong, this is what we're doing to solve that problem, to ensure that you can come out again and vote. People are already calling me and they're telling me that in places like Mushin and other parts of Lagos, they're already being threatened. You better not come out to vote except you're coming out to vote for the APC. And these are really serious allegations, really serious claims. One would expect the governor of the state or his people to get in front of that and try to ensure people you're safe. Come out. We don't care who you're going to vote for. Voting is your fundamental human right. It's a civic duty you have. We recognize it. We're going to protect you to do it, regardless of who you're voting for. What we have instead is the senior special advisor of the governor on health. I'm talking about Oroluwa Fini now, on Twitter asking people, what state are you from? If you're not a true Lagosian, you cannot be involved in Lagos matters. And if someone that high up in the state government is saying something like that in public without fear of repercussions, it makes one begin to wonder, okay, well, what's happening within the governor's office? Why are they not addressing the insane tribalism currently online being carried out by some of their foot soldiers? Why are they not on several media platforms, TV, radio, Twitter Spaces, Instagram Live, assuring people we will keep you safe? Come out
Right.
and vote. We will ensure that we walk with you, we're in front of you, no thugs will come after you. We have a Baba of Elegushi who said to people after elections, oh, we didn't recognize the faces, and almost said it as, oh, that's the reason why there was violence, because we didn't know all these faces that came to vote in front of our palace this time around. Have we heard any statement from the state governor? No. Have we heard any statement from his commissioners who are in charge of security in the state? No. The police has called a stakeholders meeting with young people and balance, trying to ensure that security in the state is upheld, security in the state is put together. But it would be more reassuring if we're hearing those things from the
From our
actual
leaders.
governor of the state.
Right. I'm sure that definitely he's watching this program, and I'm hoping that his representatives will make him do what is right and just sort of calm the polity. We had such a huge show of force leading to, before the presidential elections, we saw all of the big guns and we saw military people in their numbers. And all of a sudden during elections, it seemed like they had disappeared. You know, we had issues and we had evidences on social media where a lot of voter intimidation was being carried out even in the presence of law enforcement. How do you think maybe perhaps, of course INEC is in charge, but how do you think the federal body can ensure that Lagos, and not just Lagos, other states, is truly secured and people feel safe to come out? Because of the intimidation of that happened during the presidential elections, some people are not confident enough to come out to vote for the gubernatorial elections. So how do you think we can solve that security issue?
I think the only person or the only people who can solve that security issue is the federal government. So you have a situation where obviously there's law enforcement, and an election is obviously a very, you know, it's a national exercise, but obviously people don't feel like they're being supported. Because I know in a lot of polling units, what you had was, you had three people. You had the NYSC official, you had the INEC official, and you had one paltry policeman. Anybody can come and do whatever it is they need to do. So I think it will probably be some like ramping up in terms of security, ensuring that, you know, people are dispatched properly, that there's, what's it called? That, you know, the police or whoever it is, your law enforcement are not understaffed, so that they're there in good numbers and they can help ensure that the process goes as smoothly as possible.
Right. Okay. Sandra, a lot of people are seizing seats from the LP party, and a lot of them did not even anticipate such a huge win. And many people have described this as the Peter Obi effect. Now, how strong do you think their representation will be at the federal level, and how do you think these people that some of them might not have expected to win, how do you think they will be able to navigate through the system and the challenge that lies ahead?
So they won what, 38-40 seats in the House of Reps. My numbers are probably off at the moment. Here's what I will say: the people who have been at the National Assembly for years now got into the National Assembly at some point for the first time, and they have since that time, within that time, learned how to be lawmakers. What is happening with LP and these people who are getting into the National Assembly for the first time is not unique to Nigeria. Nigeria hasn't done anything magical here. We have people getting into national assemblies all over the world for the very first time, some of them much younger than these men and women who have gotten into the National Assembly right now. So while we're patting ourselves on the back, there are people who are flying, so please can we all just calm down? And there are people who did it for the first time and they learned how to do it while they were on the job. They figured it out. It's not rocket science to figure out what are the needs of my constituents, what kind of laws should I be pushing for that will help the greater good. It's not that complicated of a job, so let's not make it a thing. I've been following the conversation from a few Nollywood stars about Banky W's laws and how, oh, they don't even know this guy, but they know Banky W. And I'm just like, That's not essentially how lawmaking works, because the two gentlemen in question from Ethiopia have never been lawmakers. How do you know that one is going to be better than the other? Is it because one, is more popular, is on our screens, giving us great music, great movies, and the other one not so much? You have people who are, bringing out, what's the word I'm looking for now, pictures and video evidence of the other guy who won Ethiopia, doing actual grassroots work, the same way that Banku W did when he was campaigning. So just like the gentleman from Etiosa, the Okada rider in southern Kaduna, all these people will get in there and they will learn on the job. I remember my very first job as a broadcaster. I didn't know what I was doing. I learned on the job, and then when you get in there, they're going to form alliances. If the opposition candidates decide that they want to put forth the Speaker of the House, for example, they can work out an alliance between the PDP, LP, all the other parties that were able to send people into the House of Assembly, into the House of Representatives, into the Senate. They can figure out a way to work together for the betterment of us as Nigerians.
Right.
We need to understand that governance is nobody's birthright. Governance is nobody's reward. Governance is serious business. You are there to do a job. Hero, nobody gave you this job as a reward for being a fine boy. Nobody gave you this job as your reward for knowing a few people. You were given this job because you're good at the job. I was given my job because I'm good at the job, or I made a case that I could be good at my job. When people come to campaign for your votes, they're making a case to you. I fit do this work, oh. Then you say, okay, let's give you a try. When you give them a try, you don't like what they're doing, you kick them out, you elect someone new. I think it's too early to start saying, oh, we don't know what this person is going to do. We really don't. If Baki had won, we don't know. If this gentleman that has won, we don't know. We do know about Nicolo's track record, though, which is why people in Chelsea said we don't want him going back in there. We want new people. And now they're giving it to someone new. And yes, it is the Peter Obi effect. That's something that people were not paying attention to when Peter Obi started campaigning. They were not paying attention to the victory that will cascade down, all the new people who will be swept into the into the National Assembly alongside a Peter Obi presidency if he had been declared winner. Now we're there, these people, if they hold on to their seats, because it might still end up in litigation, people might still go to court to try and get their seats back, So if they're able to hold on to their seats, if they get in there, they will learn on the job. If they're not able to figure it out in 4 years, people are free to vote them out again.
Okay, Mayowa, devoid of the political party, devoid of political interest, how do you think we can get Nigerians to get really interested at the very local level? Because all of the attention is on the presidential candidates, gubernatorial candidates. A lot of people are not looking at the State House of Assembly and the representation there. So how do we get people, Nigerians, to pay as much attention to even down to the councillor that will be elected at the local government level? How do we get Nigerians to just pay attention and give their energy, just the same energy they give to the presidency? How do we get people involved at the local level?
I think there are two answers, or there are two anchors to this problem. I think the first one is cultural. So culturally, we focus on the macro. We focus on, the governor, the president, because we feel like those are the people that make decisions that affect us. But to counter that, we need increased civics education. You need to know what the role of your local lawmaker is. You need to know what the role of your local government chairman is, so that you can hold them to account. I think the other one is more of over the years, there's been a systematic disempowerment of those lesser positions. So you're talking of your local government chairman, your councillor, your state assembly representative. And the reason why is because you have a situation where, for instance, with a lot of governors don't conduct local government elections. They put caretaker committees and they just use it to reward, the party patronage system. You also have a situation where the local governments have been underfunded, because I think if you look at the revenue sharing formula, 52% is retained by the federal government, 27% is supposed to go to the states, and then 21% is supposed to go to the local governments. But then the states are the one responsible for administering the funds to the local government. So you have a situation, and they do it at their discretion. So you have a situation where your local governments and all these other lesser positions have been underfunded over the years. So I think the answer to that is better education. So we need to know what these people are doing. So your state lawmaker is not there to come and fix your road. Right. Or the gutter is, there's stagnant water in the gutter, we need to clear it. That's for your local government. So people need to know who to hold accountable for these things and hold them accountable. And then I think also on a broader level, it's about ensuring that those levels are funded properly, because then they will be able to work for the people they represent.
We're out of time. There was a very pertinent question I'd wanted to really find out. You know, I saw it on social media where they said most of our representatives are not supposed to literally do capital projects.
Yes.
Right? And because people like to see projects, they now end up building toilets.
Yeah.
You know, they made reference to Surulere, right? But in itself, it's not really their job to build it. It's just their job to represent us and make sure that capital projects come from the federal and state governments, right?
Yeah.
But because people want to see what has this particular politician done, they just end up just doing something to show for it. Sandra, final words in 30 seconds before we wrap up the show. It's been a very interesting conversation. Final words.
Thank you, Hero, for having me. I will advise everyone to go out again and vote. It doesn't matter how you feel about the previous elections. I think what's more important is that you go out again and you make your voice heard. When you don't go out and you believe that your voice was stolen the last time you went out, whoever it is that stole your voice before has succeeded in stealing it twice. You don't want that to happen, so go out on the 11th and cast your vote.
And that is simply hard facts. Mayowa, 30 seconds, final words.
I think I just need to reiterate to everyone that, you know, this thing is a process. It's not going to happen in 4 years. It's not going to happen in 8 months. It's going to take time. And what we just need is incremental progress year on year, period on period. So even if you're not satisfied with what happened the last time, still go out and make your voice heard. Know that, have like a very long game mindset to this.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming on the program, Sandra and Mayowa. It's been a very interesting conversation, and I think if there's any takeaway from the discussion we've had thus far, it's the fact that Nigeria is our own. The political landscape has indeed changed. People now realize, the politicians now realize the power that the people possess. Please do not lose that power. My name is Hero Daniels. Until I catch you next time, it's bye.